His life completely spiraled out of control, including falling from a 4-story building due to drinking. As we continue our 2-part series on rock bottom, you're not going to want to miss this miraculous and triumphant story right after this. What is mindset? Our mindset is based on what we believe, and anything we believe in, we put into motion. I have spent my life putting the mindset of perseverance into motion, and now I am here today to share my journey along with others whose mindsets have changed the course of their lives. Hi, I'm Mindset Coach Lorraine Lindsey, and I believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. So are you ready? Welcome back to another episode of The Mindsetters, where we believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. I am your host, Coach Lorraine Lindsey, a certified peak performance life coach and a mindset coach. And before we go on to our show, please do not forget to hit the subscription button. I'm learning that a lot of you are watching, but you're not subscribing. So please do not forget to hit the like and subscribe to our channel. Without further ado, I want to talk and go right into our 2-part series on rock bottom. There are a lot of you out there that are listening. We got a lot of feedback from last week's show, you've shared personally with your journeys of rock bottom and really truly being in a rock bottom stage and not really even knowing at times that you are hitting your rock bottom. And so I really want to continue talking about this and sharing personal stories with people who have had crazy triumphant stories, who have really overcome rock bottom. So if you're out there and you feel that you don't have the ability to overcome, you want to definitely stay tuned, listen to this story. And again, I will be adding links for resources for you out there for you to get help, because it is possible. So without further ado, I want to introduce this next guest. He's a first timer on this show. He has been sharing his amazing triumphant stories, miraculous story. Our next guest is Dorian Warmsley. And a little thing that we're going to touch on about, he was homeless from 10 to 12 years old. He moved to the Las Vegas Valley, which is where we are recording this show, in 2004. He spent, from 2010 to 2014 partying and drinking, got his first DUI in 2011. He has crashed his friend's car driving drunk. And again, he has fallen from a 4-story building. And we'll talk about that. He has a friend who he lost in 2015. He had all of these stories and all of these things that were happening. And yet it took a certain turn of events for you to finally say, this is enough. This is my rock bottom. So I want us to go through the journey. And first of all, I want to thank you so much for sharing. I know you've been sharing with a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I think that when someone has had a journey and they can be vulnerable and open to that, it's incredibly powerful and it can be incredibly healing for other people. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
How are you today?
I love to say I'm living the dream.
I love it.
One day at a time.
I love it. So let's start. Yep. Let's just go to this whole journey of rock bottom. Yep. Because one of the things that I saw here was that, and I'm going to circle back to it, but I just want to say from 2010 to 2014, you had said that this was your college years of drinking and whatnot.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people out there, that's just normal. I'm in college, I'm partying, I'm living the life, I'm just doing what we all do. But that can quickly spiral, especially when there are underlying issues going on in our lives that we haven't dealt with. So take us first back to your childhood and growing up and what that was like for you. Excuse me.
Yeah. So I grew up, I was born in Fullerton, California, mm-hmm. which is a city in Orange County. I lived there all the way up to about 12 years old. So about 12 years, 20 minutes from Disneyland, 25 minutes from Disneyland. And growing up as a kid was low income. At the age of 10, we became homeless. Me, my younger sister, my stepfather, and my mother. And initially, we would live with my grandmother on my Mexican side because I'm half Mexican. Live with my grandmother for maybe a year. Mm-hmm. Things didn't go well. She didn't want us there, wanted us out. So my grandfather put us in a hotel. So at that point, we started staying in hotels, in and out hotels from age like 11 to 12, about a year or two. And during this time period, we would stay in hotels based off vouchers we would get. So my mom would go to the churches, find all these resources, and they would give us vouchers. Okay, we got a voucher for a 2-night stay over here. And then we'd literally be all across the Orange County area staying in different hotels, 2 nights here, 3 nights there. And it's crazy enough, as we'll get into the drinking in a little bit, but I never saw that growing up. Like nobody in my family that I can remember was an alcoholic or even drank like that. My mom never really drank. I honestly don't think I've ever seen her drink once, to be honest. But yeah, so my mom eventually moved us here to Vegas, February of 2004. And when we moved to Vegas, our life kind of started to improve.
Okay.
My mom got a job at the 99-cent store right down the street from here, actually, Maryland Flamingo, making $6.15 an hour. At this point, it was me, her, and my sister.
Where do you rank with your siblings? Are you the oldest?
I'm the oldest, yep,
Okay.
on both sides of the family. On both sides. On my dad's side and on my mom's side. So yeah, I'm the oldest, and my sister, a few years younger than me, about 8 years younger.
Okay.
And once we moved to Vegas, the first week or so, my stepfather ended up getting arrested for a warrant he had in California. So now it's just me and my mom, my sister. And like I said, she was working 99-cent store, walking to work every day. I would go meet her to get the groceries, help her. And at a young age, I learned to, I don't want to say learn, but in my head, I was like, you know what, I'm going to be as least of a burden on her as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I always stayed out the way. I didn't get in too much trouble. I was always with my friends, things of that nature, just to make life for her easier to where she's not worrying about me getting in trouble. Now she's worried about how she's going to pay bills. What's my son doing, And as she was grinding, working in the 99-cent store, time passed and things just got better. Stepdad got out of jail, doubled the income, and things started to progress for us. From being homeless to now having an apartment, having somewhat a stable home environment.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm not sure we don't go after that, but
no, but I'm listening to
so
you.
I got here.
What I hear, right, is you telling a story.
Yeah.
Of your mom.
Yeah.
And what she was going through and what you were watching and observing. But what I want to know for you and for people who have stories very similar, what was happening to you emotionally when you were experiencing that? Like, what was it like for a young kid to be homeless, going to school, or to seeing the struggle? What was that doing to you emotionally that maybe you didn't tap into? Yeah,
and it's crazy you said because throughout my whole life, I never really thought back on it in a way to think about how I felt. And so more recently, and I did, as I've been telling my story more and more, it's like more of the things coming up, more things I'm remembering. And when I think back on it, it was sad. There was a point in 7th grade where I just kind of stopped going to school, 6th and 7th grade, where I didn't want to because I was embarrassed of where I lived. I was embarrassed that my clothes came from charities and donations. So I would leave like as if I was going to school and literally just walk for hours and then come back home. And there was no way my mom could check, she's trying to figure out how we're gonna stay next. So that was tough. And I remember one time in particular that always hit me was Thanksgiving. I can't remember the year. I might've been 7th grade. So 2003. And we're staying in a hotel, maybe 30 minutes outside of the city from where we usually are. It was in Anaheim. And I remember it was Thanksgiving Day. We're just in the dark ass hotel. I'm allowed to cuss, sorry.
Yeah.
And I remember just sitting there watching the Cowboys game. And I'm a Cowboys fan. And you know how it goes. They're probably losing. I don't know. I remember. But I remember just sitting there eating Thanksgiving, no dinner. I was eating crackers with cheese. And at the time, I didn't think nothing of it. With my mom, I'm a mama's boy. Like, it's cool. But when I think back, I'm like, God, that shit is sad.
Right.
Like,
and it's so interesting. And the reason why I asked you what you were feeling is because one of the things that I find and that I've seen somewhat that is a trend with people who get caught up in numbing or get caught in addiction is they have suppressed and learned to subdue what they thought was normal, right? I was homeless as a child as well. And I had a lot of adversity as a child, and it was our normal. And I didn't understand the psychological effect that it was having on me because it was just normal. I had feelings about things, but we didn't have time or conversations about expressions of feelings. And so a lot of my spiraling that I did in my adult life, I had this unawareness as to why I was spiraling. And so I guess for me, when I'm asking you these questions for people that are listening, when they're in their addiction, when they're numbing and they can't quite put a finger on it, it's about tapping into what are the emotional feelings that I experienced without blaming, without faulting. Obviously, your mother, you love her and you're close to her. It seems like from the conversation we had prior to be on the show, but yet you were going through things and you were the oldest, and that's why I asked you where you ranked. Yeah. Here you are, the oldest sibling, watching your mother and a young man. So did you feel, I know you had your stepfather and then your stepfather left, but then you also had an absent biological father.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel like any of that, the lack of that relationship ultimately had an effect on you spiraling into this addiction?
I do, actually. Like I said, as of now, I've been almost 15 months sober. And during this 15 months, I've been able to tap into my story, tap into what things have happened. And I've always been curious, like, why was my drinking that way? Because like I said, don't remember being in my family. You know what I mean? Like, it was not a thing that I saw growing up. And the thing I came across, so I could think it was what it was, is that because my father wasn't around and then at home, it wasn't stable. So there was no real family dynamic.
Right.
And I was always a class clown. And fast forward into those 2010 to 2014 years when I was drunk and all that, I was the life of the party.
Right.
I liked the attention. I liked being, even though I was thinking back on like, oh yeah, we like, Mr. YOLO. That's what I was known for. You wanted to go to a party, you would hit me up. And I enjoyed it and I embraced it, being the drunkest person at the party. Taking Molly with my 151, thinking it's cool, like that I'm the drunkest person. And I'm thinking that's what it was. The lack of attention from my father at home, couldn't get that really. So now that's where I got it from,
And do you feel that it also tapped into your sense of belonging?
Yeah. And almost all my life, I've been real close with my friends more than anything. And I think that comes because when we were homeless, that's who I was staying with. My mom would go to the shelter. I would go stay with friends.
Right.
And to me, I thought it was fun. Cool. Staying there with my homies. Like, I'm only 10, 11 years old. It's fun. But when I think back on it, now it makes sense as I'm older. My relationship with my friends, I take it so serious. And I think that's why.
Right. Yeah, because the most powerful thing as I coach and I talk to people is the three components, and I talk about this very often, is that usually our behaviors are stemming from one of three things, if not all three. But usually there's one that's bigger than the other. And it's the feeling of being enough, the sense of belonging, and the sense of being alone. And usually those are where our powerhouses of emotions are coming from, regardless of the narrative. So take us to 2010, 2014. This is your college years. You're partying, as you said. You were that guy. You were that party guy. When did you feel like this is getting a little out of control? Because obviously we're going to get to when you fell out of a 4-story building. But prior to that, was there ever an inkling for you to say, okay, this is out of control?
Yeah, there was a few things. And I think they were all just slaps in the face. And I just didn't realize. Like 2011, I got my first DUI. I was 19, possibly, I think just 19 years old. And DUI, went to jail, got out. While I was out, I was on a clause to not get in trouble. Fast forward the next 6-7 months later, I went to jail for underage drinking during spring break in Lake Havasu. Makes no sense to me, but whatever.
That's like a big thing.
Yeah, but I'm like, come on, spring break, you think I'm the only kid? But, I take responsibility. I was underage drinking.
Okay, so real quick, when you got your first DUI, now and when you go to Havasu and you're getting into trouble for your drinking, were you accountable at that time, or were you feeling like they were just giving you a hard time? And the reason why I ask these questions again is because when people are in it and they're numbing and they think it's okay and they're making excuses, they tend to place blame. Were you in that phase of like, okay, I got a DUI and I'm going to be accountable and responsible, or did you feel responsible?
Every time I've gotten in trouble, law or whatever, I have taken accountability.
Okay.
Like, I understand it sucks. I'll complain a little bit, but I understand at the end of the day, I'm choosing to do the things I choose. Whether it's liquor involved, my reaction to somebody, I understand at a young age that everything's my fault. That happens to me within context.
Now then, with that, taking blame, did that cause you to want to drink more? Was there like guilt or feeling shame? I guess I'm trying to understand, for people listening, what's happening emotionally to you that's causing these triggers for you to drink?
That I don't know.
To that capacity.
That I don't know. To this day, I really don't know, because there was never I could have a few drinks and be good. It was always blackout or sober. There was never no middle ground. For whatever reason, I got in the mindset of, I'm not going to drink just to drink. I'm going to drink to get messed up.
Wow.
And that was my mindset, all or nothing. And that's why now I'm sober, because I'm like, I'd rather do nothing.
I love that. I love that you're there in this space. So one night or one day, I don't know if it was night or day, you're somewhere where there's 4 stories.
Yeah.
Take us back to that day, because this is a miracle that you're alive.
So 2014, it was November 2014, the 8th, I believe. It was a good friend of mine's birthday. His girlfriend got a party bus. A few of us, handful of friends, 10, 12 of us. They live at a UNLV student living complex called Rebel Place.
Okay.
It's off-campus living, and they lived on the 4th floor. They had a 4-bedroom, roommate style apartment. Only 3 of them were living there. So the extra room was open, and I would go crash there if I stayed the night. So we go out that night, and honestly, it's the last thing I remember. I vaguely remember being on the party bus. I remember just taking shots, drinking, smoking. And then about 3 or 4 days later, I woke up in the hospital, tied to the bed. So then I looked around, I'm like, what? And I could see my mom's face, like something's not right, but she's trying to calm me down. And that was probably the first time I've really experienced anxiety, to where I was just like panicking, freaking out. And she just trying to calm me down, and then eventually told me, hey, you fell from the 4-story window. And that made me jump into more anxiety, because I'm like, wait, what do you mean? That's
right.
I like, what? Like, it was really shocking to grasp that concept. And she broke it down to me, and it took a while for me to even figure out what happened, because a part of me didn't want to.
Right.
I was, I guess, scared to see what the truth was, or even just didn't want to relive or think of it.
Right.
Of what happened.
What were your injuries?
I fractured my spine. I broke most of my ribs on my right side, punctured my lungs, broke my clavicle, and brain swelling.
Wow.
Those are some of the major ones. And I got bad knees now, but it's okay.
So were there people around that were at some point where you were able to hear the story of what happened that night?
Yeah, I got bits and pieces. Apparently, after the party bus, we all went back upstairs after the party, drinking, smoking, and I was drunk, and they put me in the room to go to sleep. Now, the door was broke, so once you close it, you need a butter knife to open it.
Okay.
So as I was asleep, drunk, I slammed the door shut, and in the middle of the night, my friends were telling me, like, hey, we heard you knocking on the door. So they had their phone out, and there's a video, of them opening the door, seeing what I was doing, kind of like a prank vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Open the door, camera goes around. It's a small room. Don't see me.
Wow.
Windows open.
So scary.
And you can just see the phone drop, boom, and you can just hear the footsteps.
Wow.
So they saw me down there. One of my friends tried to administer CPR, and then, the ambulance came. And
that's scary.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. So how long were you hospitalized for?
Total of 3 weeks.
Okay.
3 weeks total. The first week or two, kind of just barely coming to life, coming off the drugs and trying to accept what happened, understand what happened. And then the next 2 weeks was just therapy. I made the decision that I wanted to get out of there by Christmas for my mother, and I was gonna do whatever it took. I had to. It was horrible laying there because I was helpless. Couldn't move my body really. I could just sit up and down in bed. Didn't take a shower. Couldn't feed myself. My mom would have to cut my food up and feed me.
Wow.
And I just felt helpless, useless, I guess I'll say, to be honest.
Right. And interestingly enough, that was not your rock bottom.
Mm-mm.
Did you, at that time when you were going through that and experiencing that, did you correlate that with having drank too much?
Yeah.
Or that there was a problem with your alcoholism?
Yeah.
And then why? Because some people say, how is that not? How do you fall out of a 4-story building, hit a bottom, and literally hit a bottom and that not be your rock bottom? Why was that not the switch for you?
I think because I thought in my mind that was just like a one night that I got out of control. And that moving forward, if I set certain boundaries, that wouldn't happen again. So when I went back to drinking years later, it was...
So you were sober for...
maybe a year.
Okay.
I have to be, because I was on probation.
Okay.
So I had to be sober. So I was sober for about a year maybe.
So it wasn't a decision you made, it was a forced decision.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Honestly.
And there's a big difference with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that, so it's a great point. I never thought about it that way. But yeah, I went sober for about a year, all 2016. And then 17, I got back on it and got back hard. Like to where from 17 to 18, I was back on it hard. I mean, random Thursday through Sunday, just because. Jameson, 2 bottles a night. Why not?
Wow.
Just me and my friends. I had certain friends who I
it's
with.
Interesting too, because the gentleman that I spoke with last week about his addiction to alcohol, and he said, there were times when I would go periods of time of being sober, but the way to celebrate that sobriety was to go out and drink and then hit it even harder. And I think that, again, this is such important for people to hear that, because they may be having that monkey on their back right now as they're listening. So you hit it hard, you go hard.
Yeah.
And you share that a really good friend of yours dies.
Yeah.
So tell us about that story and what happened.
Yeah. So 2014, my accident happens November. And one of my closest friends at the time was always checking in on me, just texting me every day, seeing how I was in the hospital because I didn't want visitors. I tried to have a visitor once, got instant anxiety. And at that point, I was like, I can't. So he would just check in. He understood. When I got out the hospital, he was the first one to come pick me up and get me out the house because for a while I was scared to leave the house. And took me out the house, went and saw my friends again, went back to drinking. August of 15, get a text, hey, he's in the hospital on life support. Apparently he had drank too much and in his sleep and had his own vomit.
He's aspirated.
Yep. And in my head, I was like, okay, I just fell from a 4-story window. I wasn't working. I was doing drugs. He has 2 jobs, 2 kids.
He has more reason to live.
He's going to make it.
And it's just aspiration. It's not falling out of a building.
Exactly my thought.
Yeah. So, and understandably, right? You're thinking, okay, he's going to be just fine. So then what happens?
About 2-3 days later, get a text about, hey, we're going to pull the plug. If you want to come say your final goodbyes, now's the time.
And how'd that make you feel?
I don't even know. I don't want to say shocked. Almost unbelievable. Like, no way. I was kind of upset too. Like, gotta let him keep fighting, Because to me, they told my mom the same thing. He might wake up. He might not. He might be a vegetable. He might not remember you. So in my head, I was like, man, just let him fight a little longer,
Right.
And I had never seen a dead body. And in my head, I was like, I don't want that to be my final vision of him.
Right.
So I didn't go to see him when they pulled the plug and all those things.
And how'd that feel? How does that feel to you today?
I don't know. I have mixed feelings. I'm trying to think of why I really didn't want to. Maybe it was just being scared of the reality of it, and just avoiding it, avoiding have to see it and accept it that way.
Because it's painful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So he passes. Was that your rock bottom for you?
No, it was not.
Right.
That was 2015. And about 2 months later, I ended up going to jail for an incident where I took a friend's car without asking, who happened to be his girlfriend. So the night before his funeral, my friend runs a red light. We get pulled over. They run my name. They take me to jail. So I missed the funeral.
So on top of you not being able to go and see him and say goodbye because it was uncomfortable for you to do that, and understandably, now here you are and you crash the car and you can't even say goodbye to his funeral.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine emotionally whether you put it at the forefront or you stuffed it, how that probably took a toll on you. So you go to jail.
Yep.
And then what?
I get out of jail. Then I get on probation right after. I was in jail for like 2 days. And while on probation, I violated and they took me back to jail. I had to do 2 months. So it was accident, November 14. Best friend dies, August 15. And then I go 2 months in jail right after. And that was hard because in there, you have no choice but to be there with your thoughts. So I had to sit there and literally grieve my best friend dying and also trying to accept what happened to me.
Right.
Because at this point, I'm walking and everything again, but I'm still a little, messed up a little bit. But they don't care.
It's interesting too, the pattern, right? You share these stories of your childhood and things that were happening, but you never really dealt with it. Kind of stuffed. And then you have, your stepfather, who's a father figure, goes to jail. And you talk about it like it's a story, but don't really express it emotionally. And there's a stuff, right? And the importance of having closeness to people and being the life of the party because you need to belong, but you stuff that. They're just like stories. Do you realize now for you the connecting the dots to that and why the numbing made sense?
Yeah.
Because you were already kind of doing it without a substance.
I think at a young age, I started doing it because we were homeless, things of that nature. I couldn't really.
You were just in survival mode.
Exactly. And that's one thing I just started learning about was survival mode. And I didn't want to bring up, come on, mom, let me get a PlayStation or anything like that because what the situation was in, I almost accepted it for what it was. Like you said earlier, the normal.
Right.
To me, that's just what it was. And I didn't express how I felt about anything.
You didn't get to be really a kid. You didn't get to experience childhood in the way that most kids ideally want to experience it. So why not be in your 20s and party and just be irresponsible and immature, right? Yeah. So what was the rock bottom?
I don't know if it was a specific incident. I think honestly, I found the career that I'm in now as a fitness coach, and I knew it fit who I am, personality wise. Outgoing, I like talking, I got a good voice to use, I got energy. And for me, after all that stuff I went through, I just take life so, I want to say serious, but I just love living life because I know I've seen the bottom, and I'm able to be here. So I try to make the most of it. So I try to make sure I'm positive, and I try to make sure I always see the glass half full. And through that, I felt like I can help others who are dealing with things.
Absolutely.
Not everybody's going to fall out a 4-story window. Everybody's tragedy is different. Everybody's story is different.
Right.
Somebody got touched. Somebody got beat. Somebody, we all have a story. And I just wanted to use what I've been through, being literally rock bottom on that bed, not being able to wash my own ass and everything. That sucked.
Yeah.
And I was able to make it. I was strong enough to get through that and see it as a lesson. So then at that point, I was like, you know what? If I really want to take this to another level and really help people, I got to get rid of the alcohol.
Right.
And not saying, like, I don't judge anybody who drinks, because some people can literally have a drink on a weekend and that's it. I'm good for a few months. Me, I wasn't like that. So that's why I had to just go completely cold turkey, because at that point in my life, it hasn't benefited me in no way.
Right.
No way, shape, or form has it benefited me.
And you mentioned that when you were locked up, that you had to sit with your idle mind and really deal with your stuff. What was that like for you? And do you think that that was kind of the inception of saying this is enough?
I think it was the beginning. But it also reminded me of one of those things to where I'm making these decisions in my head based off my current circumstances. So for example, like when people get hungover, what do they say the next day? Oh, I'm never drinking again.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then once they feel healthy and good, it's another weekend, they're back at it. So during that time period, I was trying to make sure I wasn't saying those things to myself in jail. And then when I got out, do completely opposite.
Right.
Which I ended up doing anyway. And, but during that 2-month period, I definitely had to sit with my thoughts. I helped change my mindset on things. And that was the beginning of the change for me in 2016, probably the beginning.
And what were some of the things that you had to do? Because the thing is, human beings are creatures of habit. We are habitual in nature. And a lot of our habits or addictions or things that we do, and it could be drinking, it could be, you name it, we're all geared for habits, right? Yeah. What did you have to do to change the habits of your life so that way the temptation wasn't so strong? Because I know whenever there's addiction, that monkey's always on your back, right? It's always there trying to tap at you. So what did you have to do for yourself to say, okay, these are the steps I have to take to change?
To stop drinking? I isolated myself. So about a year ago, I decided to go independent and be my own boss. And I knew if I wanted to do that, I got to be lasered in focused. Like if I get hungover and I can't make it to a client, I'm losing money.
Right.
There's nobody bringing me clients. I got to get them myself. So I took it serious, and I honestly just isolated myself. I didn't see some of my friends for a while, for months. I didn't partake in any woman activity. I was celibate, didn't flirt, nothing. It was work and home.
Wow.
And after the first 2-3 months, it felt empowering, to be honest, to be able to get a text and be like, no, I got to train in the morning.
I love that.
Like it took 1 or 2 times for me to feel that. And I was like, okay. Because it's so easy to give in. Like,
right.
I guess I can go for a drink. And then I don't know how I am. A drink doesn't turn into that. It turns into blackout. Real quick story. Not too long ago, before I stopped drinking, 2021, I had a roommate at the time, and I told her, hey, I'm going to go have a drink with a friend. I'll be back around this time. I said that. Next thing you know, she's picking me up across town, 30 minutes across town. I'm asleep in the Walgreens parking lot.
Wow.
Hands crossed, sleep. The only way she found me is because we share each other's locations.
Wow.
And that kind of woke me up a little bit too. I was like, wait,
you don't have a grip on this.
Don't. And what happened the last time you blacked out? Now look at you. Anything could happen to me falling asleep on the east side of Vegas.
Right.
At Walgreens.
Right.
Literally. If she didn't come and have my location, a lot of shit could happen.
It's scary.
It is. It's like almost like magic. Like 1 minute I'm this and the next time I'm over. Wait, what? So little things like that were still happening, and I got tired of it.
So what's your why? What is the why that compels you every day to get up and say, nope, not today. I'm not drinking. I'm not putting another drink in my body. I am not losing control of myself. What compels you? What is that thing that you get to focus on to say, this is why? This is more important for me than ever putting a drink in my body again?
Like I said earlier, it just serves me no purpose. it's doing nothing for me in a positive light at all whatsoever. You can't tell me that. What's going to give me a false sense of confidence? It's going to make me feel outgoing? No, because that's me just masking it. Why not learn how to accept who I am and be myself at a party or the club or wherever? Not needing this false sense of, and that's one thing I had struggled with for a while. I was like thinking I needed that to be that person. Like I was already that person. The liquor would just take me to another level and just make bad decisions, you know, on the alcohol. So some of that as well. I just come to understanding, like I said, it's just not beneficial at all.
You know what? Because you're enough.
Exactly.
You're sufficient.
I like that.
Yeah. And when you don't need, you are the life of the party, not the alcohol.
Ooh,
it's just you.
That was good.
It's the fact that you show up and that people love you, they like the way you make them feel. It was never the alcohol. And you being able to separate that is where you get all your power from, you know, because you are enough and you do belong clearly. You got friends looking for you 30 minutes out of their way. That wasn't because you drink. That was because they love you, you know? So for you now, and I love you sharing, and I love your strength because it takes courage, because drinking is so socially acceptable and it is so easy for people to fall into it. So for you to have this declaration to say it serves me no purpose and to have the clarity in that, because one of the things that I know with a lot of people who become sober is they love being able to feel when maybe at a point in time they didn't feel comfortable with feeling, whether it's good or bad. But it's like, wow, take away the alcohol and I could really feel things, whether it be good or bad, but I can feel it. And that's kind of part of the human experience. So what's next for you? Tell us about what you're doing now. You're 15 months sober. Congratulations.
Yes.
So, and you're doing personal training.
Yep.
So not only are you transforming your own life, but you get to transform people with their body. And I'm sure, you know, I listen, I used to train and do all that stuff, and it's therapeutic to go to the gym with a trainer because not only are they working out your body, but sometimes you're sharing stories and things, and you have an incredible story to really keep people motivated.
Yeah.
So where do you see this going for you?
Well, the next thing up, I'm fitness coach here in Las Vegas. I also do charity events. Because based off what I've been through as a kid, homelessness, we got a lot of stuff from charities. And now that I guess I have a platform, I'm like, why not bring people together to work out?
I love that.
And also they can send the money and help somebody, you know, help those charities that helped me as a kid. So that's a big thing I like to do, charity events. And then also the next space I want to tap into is the speaking space. So my goal is to tell my story more, get better at telling my story, being able to tell my story to where you can feel it, anybody can feel it, understand, and relate to them. That's the next. Then I want to get a life coach and then see if that's another route I would want to go.
Well, let me know.
Yeah. Because
I'll help you do that.
Because for me, training, like you said, it's a therapeutic part of it. Everybody knows how to work out. You can Google it. If anything I tell you, you Google, it's probably the same thing.
Right.
It's about learning how to get you to adhere to those things, to believe them. What is it really stopping you from doing these things? Everybody Googles it, I'm sure. And that's what I try to do with my clients. And all my clients know my story and things of that nature. And I think part of that is the reason why they do choose me. They know that I know how to grind, that I got that dog in me, that I'm going to persevere every time. You know, my biggest thing is resilience.
And it's therapeutic. I think Maya Angelou is the one who said it. And she says to teach is to learn. And even for myself, I have my own crazy stories and things that happen in my life and spiraling and all kinds of things. But choosing a platform to speak about it, to have an openness and a transparency in that, really helps me to also check in with self. So a lot of times, even when I'm coaching people and they'll say, God, you've helped me so much. I'm like, yeah, but you're actually helping me too. It's a very synergistic relationship. I'm not just your coach, but you are my coach too, because it reminds me sometimes when I'm sharing to check in with self. So what do you want to say for people out there who are struggling, who are maybe in their rock bottom, maybe they're sober, but they are ready to go back? What would you say to people out there to encourage them to just keep going?
I would say it's never too late to rewrite your story. Regardless of what happened to you, that's not who you have to be. Obviously accept it, embrace those feelings, whatever happened to you, whatever it was your story was, and understand you have the power to rewrite it.
Absolutely.
You know, you can either use your tragedy to remain a victim, or you can use your tragedy to become victorious. So to me, that's the biggest thing. And I would say if you need help, whatever, tune into the Mindsetters podcast. You know what I mean? Really, because you got to feed yourself those type of things. Like me, I've steered away from music a little bit, and I try to just only listen to podcasts or self-help things, because if you just run into your head, it helps you just change your perspective on life.
Right.
Instead of seeing it half empty, you see it half full. No matter what, you know that shit's half full. And I think that's very important, like things of that nature, feeding yourself things that you want to be and become. And like I said, turn that tragedy into a victory.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite quotes I've heard recently, and I love it. It's, I am going to be an example that it is possible.
Love that.
And I got it from Mel Robbins, and I thought it was fire, because when I think about everything I went through, I want somebody to see me and see like, damn, he's an example that it's possible. You can be homeless as a kid. You can fall out a 4-story window. Well, you can have accidents happen to you and turn it into your favor, as opposed to just, oh, why me? Why me? No, it's gonna happen to everybody. You don't say why me when things happen good to you. And
do you look at yourself and give yourself that same story? You said, I want everybody to be able to look and see that you can. Do you remind yourself of that?
Lately I have.
Good.
Lately I have, because like you said, survival mode is what I've been living through 30 years. It's only the past year and a half that I've kind of been getting out of that shell of things, because now I have a job to where I make decent money. I'm doing things I love. Nobody in my family was an entrepreneur or anything like that.
And you're doing it sober.
Yeah, exactly. Sober. And just having that power, because I know right now there's a lot of people who can't go a month without drinking.
Right.
Like, I have the power to say I went 15 months. Like, that's a real grind right there.
That's a real feat.
Yeah.
Again, because it's a socially acceptable thing. Every occasion there's a reason to drink, right? And to be able to say nope, like you said, and I want to repeat this, is that it serves you no purpose.
No purpose at all.
And I love that you have that clarity.
Yeah, and the clarity over the last year has been so crazy, to where back in October, I end up reaching out to my dad after 20 years.
Wow.
For whatever reason, something hit me to like reach out. I reached out. We had a small conversation. I just let him know, about the past. I'm not angry. I'm not upset. Just want to let him know where I'm at in life, what I'm doing. And then maybe forward we'll build a relationship, some type of relationship. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whatever happened in the past happened. Like I said, I can rewrite the story now.
Yeah, I love that. And you did that sober as well.
Yep, sober.
So you're making leaps and bounds more than you probably even realized.
I'm trying to really do everything that's making me uncomfortable, to be honest.
You're doing it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you are doing it. You're not trying, you're doing it.
Period. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for sharing.
Of course.
I appreciate you reaching out to come and share your story. It means a lot that you have the bravery to do so. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And if you are out there and you guys want some working out too, hit up Dorian. His follow is at Dorian Warmsley on your Instagram.
Yep.
So, and if you just want to hear his story, if you need him as a speaker at anything that you're looking for, reach out. Look, I'm plugging your speaking already.
Now the pressure's on.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
Might as well put it out there.
I must be at Allegiant tomorrow now. Oh.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you allowing me to come on your platform and share a little of my struggles in life.
You can come back anytime.
Thank you so much.
And thank you guys again for watching another episode of The Mindsetters. And until next time, ciao. And don't forget to subscribe.